and cultivates trust and safety. Marker number 3 says that the coach acknowledges and respects the client's unique talents, their insights and work in the coaching process. So this is about seeing the client for who they are and respecting and honoring and even kind of being in awe of who they are, like pulling out what we see in them that they may not even see in themselves, right? Everyone has their own unique strengths and their own unique talents and the things that make them unique and valuable in this world. And so as a coach, we're constantly looking for that stuff. We're wanting to see beyond what the client sees of themselves. We want to be able to champion the client and pull out the stuff in them that makes them special and pull out the stuff in them that makes them successful. And so while their talents may be different than ours, they are powerful for them. And we need to acknowledge and respect their insights and the work they do in the coaching process. So this is really, really important. When we are working with clients, if we are solving for them, giving them the answers, giving them suggestions, pointing them in the right direction, telling them where to go, first of all, none of that is coaching. And secondly, that is not respecting the work that they are having in the coaching process. When we respect the work that they're doing in the coaching process, we stand back and see them as whole and complete and resourceful and competent and able to solve their own problems and come out with their own ideas and reflect and gain their own insights. We don't have to learn for them and give it back to them. When the client's talking to you and you're like, all of the dots are connecting and you're seeing great stuff, that is not the time to go back to the client and say, yes, and I see this and this and this and this, and to show them the connections you see. Yes, we can make observations about some things, but what we should not be doing is listening to the client and analyzing and getting our own learning and then being excited and sharing that back with the client. Instead, let that trigger for you a question. Think, wow, I'm getting a lot of things here. There's a lot of connections that I'm making. I wonder what connections the client's making. Because what's important is that they make the connections. And you asking the question, what connections are you seeing here? What are you learning here? What's happening for you as you talk about all these things? What new insights are you getting? When you ask those questions, the client can stop and reflect and they can learn for themselves. When you ask forward-facing questions that are transformational, that give the client something to think about, and they have to solve it and figure out what's going to happen and what they want and what they're going to do and how it's going to be, they generate their own insights. And so we need to respect their ability to generate insights and to do the work in the coaching process. Remember, we hold the process and the client does the work. Number 4 says that the coach shows support, empathy, and concern for the client. So support can be shown in many ways. It can be shown by challenging the client. It can be shown by normalizing. Normalizing might sound like, yeah, I could see how anybody would feel the way you feel if they were in this situation, right? So, yeah, that's the way most people react. And my experience, what I've seen is this happens over and over. I've seen this in plenty of organizations. I have tons of clients who come to me and they say this same thing you're saying. You're not alone, right? That is showing support for the client. Empathy is being able to see things from the client's perspective, being able to recognize the emotions that they may be having, being empathetic to their situation. Maybe they're home and they've got 4 kids they're trying to homeschool and they're trying to work and they've got 3 jobs. Wow. That's a lot going on. And imagining what it must be like to be in that client's shoes, so that as they're in this coaching process and they're learning and they're trying to figure out where to go and what to do, you can't forget that this is the life they're in, right? This is reality for them. So then it's important for us to work with them knowing the context of their reality and not expecting what other people might be doing in that same, in the same coaching kind of conversations, right? What works for one and what's good for one is not what's going to work for another. Each client has their own system and their own context. And so what we need to do is be empathetic to where they are, show support and concern for the client. And so the client owns the agenda. The client owns the topic. The client owns making changes. And we are in relationship with them. So we should care about them. We should show care and concern. Something that I've often had to do with clients that shows care and concern is ask about, well, how balanced do you feel right now? How much sleep are you getting these days? How's your health in the midst of all this that's happening? Right? And that care and concern maybe will even show up in 2 or 3 sessions ago. They said something about a family member. Maybe their mom was sick, or they were waiting on a diagnosis or something like that. It's okay to ask about that, not for you, but for them, right? So you mentioned your mom. How is she? Great. Now you don't have to have a whole conversation about it, unless that's what the client wants. But being able to show support and care and concern and recognize that this coaching relationship is a real relationship. It's not a friendship, but it is a relationship. And it's one of trust and of vulnerability. And the client is going to trust you with their secrets, with their hopes and their dreams and their fears and their concerns and their worries. And when you remember those things and you bring them back into the conversation, and refer back to them, that really helps the client know that this is a trusted space.